Mr. President, thank you so much for chatting with us today as you prepare to head to COP30 in Brazil, which has, of course, been deemed the Forest Cup and incredibly important to Ghana. So I guess to start off this conversation, for our viewers, tell us about COP and Ghana's expectations at COP.
Well, as you know, there's a lot of different opinions on COP this year, and that is because of the global political environment and the policy environment. Many of the major players in the global system, would have pushed back on climate-related issues. It's important for us to understand that climate change and climate-related issues took what I would term in local dialect, took a beating in the last, I would say, year and a half. If you look at 3 years ago, climate change and stories surrounding the environment occupied a large proportion of the media space. It occupied many headlines across the world. But today, we have seen climate change and climate-related issues push beyond the headlines, not even in the fly lines. And other important issues also, which include global trade, food security, energy security, AI and digitization. These priorities or these issues are now elevated on the front burner. So it's important at this COP that the hope we all have to develop a fairer system that would allow the financing mechanism for small states, especially vulnerable states, to survive in a global environment in which climate-related disasters are not only becoming more prevalent, but much, much harsher, as we have seen in Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti in the most recent hurricane. Guyana is a champion on climate-related issues. We have advanced solutions not only for tropical forests. We have supported the Bridgetown Initiative, and we have really worked with all partners and stakeholders on a financing mechanism that would not only allow countries to have access to resources for adaptation and mitigation, but it goes much further than that. Our model is one that values our climate-related assets. And what are our climate-related assets? Our tropical forests, our oceans, our biodiversity. And we are positioning that these are not only matters of nature, but they are also economic commodity that are important for the survival of the planet. Just like fossil fuel and other forms of energy are essential for the survival of humanity, are essential for the expansion of economy, environmental services and environmental product are essential for the survival of our planet. Therefore, our position is very clear. There must be a market-based mechanism that value these global assets and a payment mechanism that is fair, that is credible, and we are saying it must be credible. We're not talking about replanting 10 acres of forest and calling that Yes, that is good climate action. But we're talking about deploying a forest at jurisdictional scale and allowing this forest to fall under every international framework of accountability and monitoring. And that is our commitment. Now, we are also very clear that yes, we are a new petroleum producing country, but we are also still going to be a positive contributor in the climate equation, even at our maximum production. The point is, as we advance in a world that is rapidly changing, we had the Industrial Revolution that necessitated energy to propel countries, that left the developing world behind because we did not have access to the energy, we did not have reliable energy, and we did not have competitive energy. Today, the world is moving in another direction. Digitization, AI, all of which requires hyperscale data centers. And the most important ingredient for those data centers, again, is energy. So the energy gap is widening. It's leading to greater disparity among and between nations because countries who cannot adapt to this digital revolution will be left behind once again. There is still massive energy poverty in Africa. And there is still a large segment of the global population without any access whatsoever on energy. And whilst the technology on renewable and alternative energy is advancing at a rapid pace, there are still many questions. For example, on solar, the financing for mega projects, the replacement cost for batteries. Because if you have a capital project, financing a capital project where there's a replacement cost for one component of that project every 5 or 7 years, is risky in the current market. If we backpedal a bit, 3 years ago, no financial institution wanted to hear anything about energy. They weren't going to finance it. Today, the policy framework has changed, and again, we are seeing massive investment in energy projects across the world. At the same time, you're seeing a scale back in climate financing. And why do I say a scale back? Many people believe that, more financing is coming. More financing is not coming. What we have is a restructuring of loans, restructuring of existing agreements. And that is not new financing. When I speak about financing, we are speaking about new financing that is coming on the table. So Guyana, we have to be mature and responsible, though we are small, and to bring a balance in this debate. Too much extremism would have occurred in the last decade on climate issues. That is why we have this polarization. Those who are opposed are deadly opposed. Those who are for are deadly for. But where do we find the balance? We have to bring all the stakeholders around the table in a realistic way and to find solutions that would allow every stakeholder not only to participate and have their views advanced, but would allow every stakeholder time and an opportunity to reorient their own businesses and to reorient their own system to the new world that we all must build and live in. So we are advancing at this COP. that, first of all, we're showcasing the journey of the low carbon development strategy. And this is not a climate strategy. This is a development strategy. An idea that was birthed and a set of policies that were created around this idea of deploying our forests as an economic tool for national development and transformation, for livelihood advancement, and for the advancement of our indigenous community. Embedded in the LCDS is the preservation of culture, the preservation of identity, whilst advancing development. There is no other strategy in the world that is this broad and holistic and integrated into community, national, cultural, regional, and international life. So the LCDS is a model on its own that Guyana is now ready to deploy at a global scale. And we are humble about this. There's no arrogance about this. But we have to be very honest ourselves that our technical people, our government, has been able to put to the global community a development strategy that advances development of country in our world, whilst at the same time looking at our environment, our climate, safeguarding that, and more importantly, maximizing the value of our most important asset, that is keeping the planet alive. This does not come without cost. Sticking to the LCDS and developing our country within the boundaries of the LCDS is not easy, because we have set ourselves criteria that we must meet annually in terms of deforestation, in terms of mining, in terms of our monitoring and audits. But our institutions, be it the Guyana Forestry Commission, the Low Carbon Development Strategy Unit, the Ministry of Natural Resources, they have all been able to work in an integrated way, to the extent now that the LCDS is the principle through which the development strategy of every sector is built upon. So the LCDS has become a part of national life. We are now working to have the LCDS, well, not working, it's already integrated in the curriculum of our schools, so that the next generation of Guyanese don't grow into understanding what the LCDS is. It will be inherent in their development. So they will grow in a new era of appreciation for what we have, our greatest asset, and that will become part of their culture and national psyche, and that is important. So we are advancing a model for biodiversity, a model for tropical forests, but more importantly, we are also there to support other countries. We are in partnership with we support the Bridgestone Initiative. We support the TFFF from Brazil. But all of these initiatives are not in isolation of what we have presented and tested in the global system. They are part of a menu of measures. They are part of a menu of options that is available for us in the world today. Finally, I would not want this COP to be one of complaining. I'm not going there to rehash the problem. Yeah. I'm not going there to beg for money. I'm going there to tell the world that they have a responsibility to pay for an economic commodity that is saving the planet. And for us to agree on changes that are necessary in the system. We will cry from now till all of us go to the great beyond if the system remains the way it is today. The system has failed us. And unless we are willing to fix the system cannot be one that goes up and down depending on who is in power and depending on what policy environment we're operating in. That, unevenness cannot lead to long-term planning or long-term solution. So we have to find a systemic way in fixing these problems and building in climate mechanism in everything we do in life. Whether it's loans, all new loans, whether it's insurance, whether it's food security and food production. And we have shown we are one of the first countries in the region to have crop insurance for our rice farmers. We are not only talking about solutions, we are testing them, we are implementing them. And that is why Guyana is such a responsible, respected voice on this issue globally.
Mr. President, I have to ask, we see some key players who won't be part of this COP. So how do you really get persons to embrace this position that you're advancing and embrace the measures that Guyana is offering the world?
I don't blame anyone. There are important stakeholders who would have scaled back. Not that they're not participating, but scaled back in this COP. And why? The question is why? Because the extremism in the debate has divided us. If the debate is about finding a solution and finding a balance, extremism has no place on the table. We have to understand, it's an emotional thing. When people speak about their country, when you speak about your entire country being destroyed by a hurricane, we face floods every year. It's emotional. But we have to separate sometimes the emotion from the reality. And the reality is that we need every stakeholder around the table. So I think that the extremism has driven too much of a wedge between and among us. And I believe this is the COP for sober reflection, for honesty, and for a deep sense of responsibility in advancing a system. This, COP has become, I would say, I was telling Pradeepa, I think last year, that COP is now the art of negotiating words. The whole of COP is about what do you define your victory? Who got more words in the document? There is no definitive pathway on fixing the system. And unless we fix the system, we will continue. Look, we went to the UAE. The UAE pledged a lot of money for biodiversity. Guyana advanced. I'm just showing you our level of responsibility. We announced to the UN in 2024 that we're going to launch a global biodiversity summit, an alliance. Tremendous excitement. What did we do? We launched it. We have now established a secretariat in Guyana. And we are now looking for international partners that will advance this. But let's look at biodiversity. The world has lost more than 50% of its biodiversity in the last 60 years. Biodiversity is linked to our ecosystem, to our health care. It is linked to pharmaceuticals. It's linked to research and development. It's linked to the existence of humanity. And if this can't move us, then I don't know what will move us. But it is what are the things we value in life? And the moral question is, do we value the things that keeping our planet alive? And if we value the things that are keeping our planet alive, then are we willing to pay the value for that? And this includes the ocean. This includes the oceans. We can't speak about a marine economy, or some people limit it to an ocean economy, without understanding the value system of the ocean itself. So, that's where we are.
Right. I just want to ask you one final question on Guyana at COP. Could you perhaps tell us how your position and Guyana's advocacy at COP, how that ties back to all that you're doing in Guyana in relation to low carbon development, biodiversity, conservation, and supporting our indigenous people?
Well, it not only ties back. You see, this is not about Guyana alone. What Guyana is doing is providing global leadership. So what we are doing is advancing Guyana's model for a global solution. This is not about tying back to Guyana. This is where Guyana has tested a model that we are sharing with the world. That is why we are part of the FCLP, co-chairing with the UK, because the world has recognized that we have something that has been tested, and we want to deploy that at global scale. But all of that is linked to the ecosystem that we have built around the LCDS. For example, indigenous rights, indigenous ownership, cultural preservation, direct financial transfer to indigenous community, building out of livelihood for persons living in indigenous in these communities, large-scale climate-related projects, food security projects. All of these things, as I said earlier, are integrated in our national development model.
Mr. President, as I have the opportunity to talk to you today, the mid-year report was just presented to the National Assembly, and we saw a lot of reports coming out of that. I want to focus specifically on the agricultural sector. I do note a few months ago you spoke specifically about support for farmers, rice farmers and fisherfolk, and the mid-year report speaks about what has happened in the rice sector, has acknowledged it, and has said that the government will support farmers some more. Could you tell us about what's being done in specifically in the agricultural sector in terms of providing support to those groups?
Well, we have continuously supported farmers over the last 5 years. If we look at the last crop alone, and you take a rice farmer, you ask specifically about rice farmers, and you take a rice farmer, outside of the $300 we give per bag, an average rice farmer, let's say small, medium, and large, the average is about 15 acres they do. You know what is the subsidy we have given for that 15 acres of rice? When you look at what we give for fertilizer, transportation, agrochemical, when you add up all of this, it is about more than $400,000 for that 15 acres. That's outside the almost $1.9 billion we spent in the forest crop for the $300 subsidy on every bag. So outside of the $1.9 billion, in other support and subsidy for a 15-acre rice plot, we spent about, for each one of those farmers, more than $400,000. And we will, as I said a few months ago, we will examine the prevailing condition and we will take necessary steps to intervene. And I want to say to you today, I was planning to speak about this later, but as you asked, I'll speak about it now. We will produce in this second crop more than 9 million bags of paddy, more than 9 million bags. And at a minimum, I can say to you now that we're going to give, like we did in the forest crop, another $300 per bag subsidy. That will be an injection of more than $2.7 billion to our rice farmers. And that is outside of the help that I just talked about that they will get for every 15-acre plot when you calculate it. So I can say to you clearly now that at a minimum, we will be giving them the same $300 we give on the first crop per bag. We have over $9 million, 9 million bag produced this crop. So that will be an injection of more than $2.7 billion. And as I'm on that topic, we also started to talk about our fisher folk and to see how we can help our fisher folk. We had started looking at inputs like fishing, the seine, the material, supporting with no taxes on fuel and other capital equipment that our fisher folk needed. I can say to you now too that we're going to continue that program we started. Some fisher folk would have already received it, and we're going to give $150,000 to every fisher folk out there to help them as a incentive, a subsidy from the government. So you can clearly say today that we're going to put $2.7 billion into rice. That is $300 per bag. And we're going to give $150,000 to every one of our fisher folk. That brings me to the third question that I know you will ask about cash grants. Now, we have made it very clear. All this are part of a big mechanism of support wealth creation, supporting productivity, and supporting vulnerable group. Now, let me be very clear that I'm going to announce before the end of the year a series of measures, not only looking at cash grant, but looking at the total empowerment of every Guyanese. Whether you're someone living with disability, the elderly, children, women, small businesses, farmers, you name it, every category. I'm going to announce a comprehensive slew of measures that would include, of course, cash transfer to families before the end of the year. That will take us not only into the next year, but will take us in our cycle of government in the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. I intend to do that. But one of the things I want to say now to every Guyanese is that the system, we are digitizing everything, and everything will be done in a systemic way. So I'm urging every Guyanese to open their bank accounts. We have already spoken to the banks. You've seen the improvement. You can now open your account online. Very minimal requirement for accounts below $1 million and so on. So there's no excuse. We want every Guyanese to own their own bank account so that this digital transfer would be easy and efficient and, of course, transparent. So let us use this period, and we're using this period also, to put the mechanism in place and finalize the system of delivery. But today I think I'll stop here in terms of, I think you have gotten a lot out of me under the disguise of COP. So I want to say to Guyanese, we ought to be collectively proud of what we are doing and what we are contributing to the world on the issue of climate. I want to take this opportunity to thank our entire team in the LCDS, our advisory team, the Guyana Forestry Commission, Ministry of Natural Resources, our entire team. I don't want to name names because I'll miss one and it will be unfortunate on my part. So I want to thank all of them. We have amazing young people. Amazing young people. Amazing and experienced. I would say we perhaps today have the best minds when it comes to climate expertise, building models, proposing financing mechanism and negotiation. I am very proud of our team. I am very, very proud of our team. I speak about our team anywhere we go. Our team is respected anywhere they go. And I think that we have put together the human capital, the brain power, and the policy matrix that has allowed us to be a leader on climate. Thank you.